focus. Remember, coming back to the slides I've shown previously, the more powerful the goals, the intensity of what we intend to reach and accomplish that we set for ourselves, our ownership, the more we can pursue those goals despite internal and external distractions. That's our successful focus. And I added to that the importance of cognitive control. That's what we're going to be learning here in a few minutes, the tools and techniques you need for better cognitive control. So what does this look like for younger kids? What does successful focus at home look like for younger kids? Keeping a calm home environment, limiting the use of media in the home. I love this. I both love and hate this picture because it's so cute and I just want to smile when I see this little kid. And the fact that this kid is in front of a laptop computer makes me want to cry. But clearly, babies this young are not in front of laptop computers yet, but it's happening at really young ages. Having your child's vision and hearing checked. This was really interesting to me as I was reading the research, that often they'll think that a child has ADHD when really they're just having trouble hearing what's being taught or seeing the board or the Promethean board in a lot of cases now. So imagine how hard it would be to concentrate if you can't hear what's going on or what the teacher's saying, or you can't follow or see what's being written there for you. You'd be totally lost and not really sure what's going on in class, right? So of course, behavior is going to suffer in those instances. So a lot of times they found it's important to have your child's hearing and vision checked to make sure that maybe that's what's causing the problem. And staying positive around your children, because our children worry about us as much as we worry about them. Continuing that list, be in the moment with your child at least once per day and have clear rules and enforce them consistently. This is probably one of the most important things to do. Have very clear rules that the child understands and that are enforced each and every time that behavior is displayed. And enroll your child in a sport to channel extra energy. Michael Phelps is probably the most famous person with ADHD because they talked about it a lot during the Olympics of how he had such trouble concentrating in the classroom. He had all this energy, he had ADHD, and yet give him a different outlet where he can move his body. And he has no problem focusing then. In fact, research has found that successful focus in the classroom for younger kids involves giving the kids a lot of time and space for physical activity to get their wiggles and giggles out, as I like to tell them. Giving them a playful learning environment. This is big in preschools these days, the play-based preschools, which is really important. Allowing them to try certain things, explore, play, see how things go, come back, reiterate, doing it slightly differently. What happens if I build this huge block structure on a little tiny cylinder? Oh, it all falls down. Okay, haha, let's do it a different way. What about if I build it this different way? This is how they learn and grow. And that they also benefit from smaller class sizes where the kids can get better, deeper, more focused attention from the adults in the classroom. This group, Help Guide, is a nonprofit mental health and wellness website, and their goal is to empower people through evidence-based research, educators, parents, etc. They have an amazing array of data in their ADHD Help Guide, the link of which is listed there. The picture that I've included is the picture from the front of their help guide that's specifically on ADHD in the schools. So this is a great set of resources. What does it look like for older kids in the classroom? Well, we get back to that intensity, ownership, and ability again. How strong is the incentive for focus in the classroom at the high school, middle school, and high school levels? Who creates those rules and incentives, and how well do the students understand them? Do the students get any buy-in to those rules, or are those rules imposed on them by the teachers? And what is the ability of those students to follow those rules? That's the cognitive control again, even if they're invested in a successful outcome. This is their ability. Older kids have additional distractions that younger kids do not have in the classroom because they're walking around with their cellular devices all the time attached to them. In a recent study, almost half of the undergraduates reported using their phones for off-task activities in the classroom. Now, sometimes technology is used on task in the classroom. You've got the computers, you've got Chromebooks, you've got the cell phone. People are using those, teachers are using those in the classroom environment. What we're talking about here is off-task use for personal issues. And yet, off-task use has become kind of normalized, unfortunately. In fact, a lot of students said that it was their right to use their technology in the classroom however they wanted, whenever they wanted. And yet instructors felt insulted even, they said, by students' use of technology for off-task uses, and that it's very brazen. They don't even try to hide it. They said, students used to try to be down here below, underneath their desk, kind of kept catching a little quick furtive glance. Now they're just right there, not paying attention. So yeah, wow is right. Back to this myth of multitasking. Remember this? This quote, multitasking is merely the opportunity to screw up more than one thing at a time. This research is fascinating. It was conducted by professors in an upper-level psychology course, and it should give all of us pause. It should be alarming, actually. The researchers called this, instead of a gold standard methodology, a platinum standard methodology, because what they did is the control group and the research group were the exact same students. What they did is, so they didn't have to account for any changes in the groups. Certain days were no technology days. Electronic devices had to be put away, stowed, stored, off. Other days were device accessible days. They were allowed in the classroom, they were allowed to be used, they were allowed to be looked at just like normal. And then they gave a quiz after every lecture period. They also gave 3 exams throughout the course and then a summative exam at the end of the course, like often happens in all of these courses. But what they did is they did a daily quiz for what the students learned. What they learned is that across the board, for all students, grades were lower on device accessible days. When the devices were allowed, grades were lower. That's alarming enough. But what they found is grades were lower across the board for all students on device accessible days, even if that student didn't choose to access their device. Just other students in the surrounding classroom accessing their devices led to lower scores for everybody. That's how distracting it can be. Because you go, oh, what are they looking at? Ooh, the screen just flashed. Ooh, right? There's a lot of distraction. So that's really concerning. Those in class suffer from other students' use of their devices. I'm going to make it more concerning and alarming because what they found is that splitting their attention in the classroom between the lecture and the device hindered long-term retention of the information. After each class, they would ask the students exactly what they remembered from the lecture that day. On days when devices were not allowed and days when devices were allowed, the students immediately after class remembered what had happened in class. Recall was very good, okay? But 2 weeks later, students, the same students, remembered what they had learned in that lecture 2 weeks earlier if it was a day when devices weren't allowed. But if it had been a day when devices were allowed, they didn't have that retention. What needs to happen is the brain needs to do something called encoding. It needs to take information that we learn and take it prune away irrelevant details and encode into long-term memory details that are really important, so it becomes retained knowledge. And instead, what they found is that on the device accessible days, 2 weeks later, those students could not remember what took place in class that day. So this split attention led to huge decreases in long-term retention and knowledge. So that means we're just learning a little, forgetting, learning a little, forgetting, learning a little, forgetting. This is really, really problematic for educators, but especially for the students themselves, right? They're doing themselves a disservice.